Hello, everyone. My name is Seamus Braley. Welcome back to my interviewing podcast. Today, we got a special guest on. According to IMDb, he's been acting since he was 13 years old, and he's been in several films and TV shows, including Live by Night and Bachelor Night, and most recently, the video game Mafia Definitive Edition as Tommy Angelo. Everyone, give a warm welcome to Andrew Bongiorno. How you doing today, Bonge?
Good day, famous Seamus. How are you, mate?
I'm doing all right.
That's good. That's good. How's the call going? I think we're getting a little interference. Is it working all right?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Your audio on the computer is probably a little bit loud. I'll turn that down slightly.
Okay, cool. No worries. Yeah, no, I think it's just because I got my headphones in. Cool, cool.
All right.
So,
All right, yeah. So let's start with a couple of basic questions. What got you into acting?
what got me into acting? Oh man, actually, I guess the simplest answer is actually my mum. My mum got sick of me talking about how much I wanted to be an actor, and when I was a kid, and I'd been talking about it for probably a couple of years. And then eventually one day she picked me up from school and she said, "I've got you an audition," and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "That's crazy." So I was instantly nervous because had no idea. You get scared about the unknown, so I had no idea what I was doing or what it was going to entail. And then I ended up booking the role, did the audition, booked the role, and got an award from it, and I was instantly hooked. And I've been acting ever since. And that was, yeah, it was basically, I think I was about 12, 13, yeah, around that time.
Yeah, because I was checking IMDb. It said 13. It said you won an award for best under 16 actor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was actually a musical. I was doing The King and I at the time. So,
Ah,
yeah, so very different to what I'm doing these days because I'm doing a lot of TV and film at the moment. So,
all right, yeah, that's nice. So, yeah, because like when it comes to some of your other film roles, I haven't seen much of it. However, I have seen a few, like say Bachelor Night,
yeah, oh, you've
which
seen that, have you?
yeah, it was on Amazon Prime, so I feel like I might as well watch it.
Oh, is it on Amazon Prime? I had no idea. There you
Yeah, it's on Prime.
go. Right, there you go. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm probably more proud of the TV stuff that I've done. A lot of the films have been sort of hit and miss, but working with Ben Affleck in Live by Night was a huge honor to be able to do that. And he was really kind, really friendly, and just very relaxed. I was really surprised because he was producing and he wrote it and he directed it and he was starring in it. And he had millions of dollars, right? I think it was an $80 million budget film, and he was
Jesus.
yeah, and he was completely cool as a cucumber, like it was just water off a duck's back.
Nice. Yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause I can understand like it would probably be like kind of scary to work with someone like that famous or that big because that guy was Batman at one point and he worked alongside Robin Williams. So of course at some point you're
Yeah.
gonna be like, "Oh, Jesus,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a huge fan of Robin Williams. But
my favorite
yeah, I
comedian."
mean, and one of my favorite movies actually is Good Will Hunting. So, and also I think he did an amazing job directing Fargo. I mean, you don't win an
Yeah,
Academy Award for nothing, right? So, yeah.
oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like when it comes to Robin Williams, is my all-time favorite comedian. He's an absolutely like stunning comedian. Like his improv, his skills is just absolutely amazing.
Man, it was one of the saddest days of my life when I found out he'd ended it.
Yeah, I actually remember where exactly I was when I found it out. Uh, I was in the back of my car with my mom and my grandma in the front seat. My grandma was driving. I remember my mom got a call saying, like, from her ex-husband saying Robin Williams just passed away. We're in the back. The only thing I knew about him was he was in Aladdin. I was like, oh, that's sad. And I started looking more into him. I was like, wow, like this guy's career is absolutely amazing. It's terrible that this happened to
Yeah.
him. His career is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a fan by default because my dad was a huge fan when he was growing up watching Robin Williams. And we used to watch Mork and Mindy, who I think was basically what launched Robin Williams' career. I watched a documentary about Robin Williams. He has an amazing story. He was basically busking on the side of the street in Hollywood Boulevard and was discovered that way.
Fellow space travelers. Fly, be free! Well, I guess we'll have to have a quick burial at sea then. I'll notify your next of kin.
Yeah, was the one Inside My Mind? Was
Yeah,
that the
that's
name?
right. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
Robin Williams inside my mind. Yeah,
yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah,
great
so when it comes to Mork
documentary.
and
Yeah.
Mindy, yeah, like at the time he was doing his stand up, and then he was seen by say his producer, so like eventually he was brought on to Mork and Mindy because well originally it was Happy Days. When they got him on Happy Days, they wanted him to play an alien because the executive producer's son saw Star Wars at the time, and apparently he was like, "Put an alien in your show." And so yeah, and so the executive producer saw Robin Williams perform, and he's like, "This guy is amazing. Let's get him on." So they got him on,
Yeah.
and he was doing a lot of stand up. And actually, like, they actually had to censor that episode like 4 times because what he was doing was whenever he would do like the gibberish for Mork's voice, he wouldn't just speak gibberish. He would be speaking different languages. So
Yeah,
whenever he would like,
he was
yeah, yes,
he
like
was
whenever
on
he do
another
like the
level.
whole like yes, like whenever you do like the whole like whenever you do that whole thing, he'd be like
Yeah.
swearing in Spanish, swearing in Russian, just like he'd be like saying dick jokes in different languages. And apparently the first time they caught it was some viewer who spoke Spanish was like, "Wait, what did he just say?"
Yeah, he was brilliant, man. I mean, seriously, he was on another level. One of my favorite stories about Robin Williams, and clearly I'm a big fan, is when it came time to do the Academy Award nominations for Best Writing of Animation, and because he played the genie in Aladdin, which is one of my favorite Disney movies, the original Aladdin, because of him, they actually weren't eligible. The writers were not eligible for an Academy Award because they couldn't distinguish exactly which words were the writers' words and which was just improvisation by Robin Williams. So they didn't
Yeah,
know how much of a percentage of the script was actually the writers, so they weren't eligible for an Academy Award.
yeah, because when it comes to Robin Williams, like he improv so much dialogue for that film because the film is about an hour and 50 minutes long. And you want how much dialogue he recorded just from improvisations alone?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty
16
incredible.
hours.
Oh, really? 16 hours? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
it is 16 straight hours of just improvisational dialogue, and that of course didn't make it in the final film.
Yeah, I knew they didn't use a lot of it, but wow, 16 hours. He
Like
was
I
a
actually
busy
like
man.
yeah, actually one of my favorite Robin Williams stories was when they were about to film Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin wanted to test the effectiveness of the makeup on somebody, so he had the makeup put on him. So of course he dressed like the old lady. He was putting on the voice, and apparently like, the first thing that he did, he went down to a sex shop and he started asking like, "Oh, what about the big black one over there?" Uh, and just like really weirding
That's
out the
awesome.
guy until eventually the guy was like, "Oh, Robin, you asshole, get out of here."
Oh man, as if you tell Robin Williams to get out. But yeah, no, wasn't he sitting in that chair for something like 6 hours before they could even start filming because of the makeup chair?
Yeah, apparently the makeup, like since it was so in depth, I think yeah, it was about like a 5 hour makeup applying process for that film alone.
And I think by the end, the makeup artists had done it so many times they got it down to like 3.5 hours or something like that. I don't know. I'm just paraphrasing the documentary now, so I can't really remember. It's been probably 2 years since I watched that documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually remember there was actually like there was a Robin Williams biopic I had never heard about actually that came out in like 2003. Uh,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was a made for TV film. It was called I think it was called the unauthorized story of Mork and Mindy, and basically it was
Wow.
Christy Metopoulos playing Robin Williams. Uh, and
Wow.
it's a partial biopic. It's about like say like the beginning of Mork and Mindy to the end of Mork and Mindy, like Robin's life in the period of time. They even touch on the whole John Belushi thing too.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it's actually a decent film. I saw it. It's actually pretty decent.
Oh, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Uh, okay. Yeah. So like okay. So yes, like when we get back to your career, what would you say is the film or performance you're most proud of?
Oh, wow. I'd probably put it down to there's sort of three that come to mind. There's a movie that's never been released, which I keep hearing occasionally once a year from the producers saying, "Yeah, it's going to be released this year, and it's going to be released." So I still haven't seen it, but it's called Grief, and I was very fortunate. The director wonderful guy named Kevin Phipps. He's based in Arizona, but he comes out to LA a lot. And he is also a teacher of the Meisner technique, which is a technique of acting that I've only very briefly touched on as part of my 3-year acting degree that I did back around the year 2000. But I'm showing my age now. But yeah, so he allowed me to do a lot of my own stuff. Speaking of improvising, there was a monologue in the movie that I was supposed to do, and he basically told me 2 days before. He said, "Look, mate, if you want to tell a similar story that just sort of feels more real to you, then feel free to tell it." So I did. Got on set and managed to do that, and he just gave me a lot of freedom, which I think the thing with acting, it's a fine line when you for directors, I think, with actors, and I can only speak from my own experience, but when you start telling an actor how to act, then it's no longer their performance, and so it's not as personal to them, and so it sort of comes across, it can very much, you're risking it coming across as being very fake and not believable. And this director, Kevin, he did the complete opposite. He allowed me to just do my thing, and he would tweak, and he'd sort of, and that was the great thing also about Ben Affleck. He just sort of tweaks little things. He doesn't sort of tell you what to do, because he trusts his actors. And I think that's also the difference between an actor's director and a technical director. That's what I call an actor's director, is someone who understands the craft of acting and has come from an acting background, like Ben Affleck has. So he understands what it takes to be in front of the camera and actually portray a character. Whereas a lot of directors have never even tried doing that. And so they come from more of a technical angle, where they're looking for camera angles and lighting and manipulating, for the edit. They might be thinking about audio or something like that that they want to put in to enhance the performance. But for me, obviously coming from theater, it's very much the base roots. When you start with theater, you're basically telling a story from start to finish chronologically. And when you do film, you might do the end first, and then you might do the beginning, and then you might finish off shooting the middle of the film. So it's very important, I think, for directors to sort of experience what actors go through to be able to be an actor's director rather than just a technical director. So that was a
Yeah,
long-winded answer for you. There you go.
yeah, because I have noticed it has been kind of rare for a lot of films to be filmed chronologically. Like, I think some of the only films that come to mind that are filmed chronologically are ones like Hollow Man. It's a Kevin Bacon movie where basically it's a more
Yeah, I've seen
horror
it.
type twist on. Okay, good. Yeah, it's a great film, and the reason why they filmed it chronologically is because, like, say, like how much stuff gets blown up at the end. So they felt it was
Ah,
best to film it chronologically, so they don't have to kind of worry about extra props or anything.
oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, budget comes into it a lot for sure. That makes sense. Well, that's
Yeah,
another
exactly.
reason why a lot of movies are not filmed chronologically, is because let's say you and I at the beginning of the film, we might be meeting in a cafe, like Pulp Fiction. Okay, they start in a cafe, right?
Yeah,
Um, then they wouldn't have filmed those cafe scenes chronologically. They would have gone, okay, well, we've got the cafe today for this week, so let's shoot in the cafe all the scenes from the whole movie that are shot in this particular cafe. And so they would have done the end of the film for Pulp Fiction is in the cafe, and the beginning of the film is in the cafe. So, and then there's conversations in the middle of the film, I think, that are also in the cafe. So they would have shot that all at the same time, like one after the next, rather than come back when they're halfway through the film and go, okay, we're back in the cafe, so let's go back to the cafe, because it doesn't make sense. It just costs more money to do that. So
yeah, obviously, yeah, like that just seems like the smarter way to do it. Where say you're not wasting as much time, so you're able to just like, okay, we got this as we have it now, so let's
yeah.
use what we have now to make sure we can get that all done for now, so we don't have to constantly like, come back here, like buy it out again for a certain period of time. Because I actually remember Kevin Smith when he was making Clerks. I think he did the exact same thing where every scene that was filmed inside the store, I think he tried to filming that all as fast as he could to make sure they like, can see. I think he only rented it out for about a week, so they wanted to make sure they got every indoor scene done as fast as they could.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that about Hollow Man shooting chronologically. That's a blessing. I mean, it almost never happens in film.
Yeah, yeah, because like when it comes to like shooting chronologically, as you mentioned before, sometimes it is better to shoot non-chronologically, so you're able to get things done faster. However, if you kind of need to, I feel like it is best to shoot chronologically, because
Yeah.
like only in some cases though, like with Hollow Man. Uh,
Yeah. I'll tell you what would have been crazy to shoot is do you know that movie Boyhood?
I think I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it.
They shot it over something like I think 13 years or something like that
Damn.
because the director wanted to actually capture this actor growing up as the character grows up. So they just
Jeez.
kept coming. Ethan Hawke's in it as well. He's unbelievable. I mean, he's such a great actor. But yeah, so Ethan Hawke, whenever he was available, they'd just come back and they'd be like, "Oh, hi, Ethan. Great to see you again. It's been 3 years since the last time we shot something for this film, but yeah, let's do these scenes now that you're older and the boy's older." And yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of funny how easy that is to do nowadays because say we have like things like say CGI, so like say with the more recent Marvel films, they're able to create a younger Robert Downey Jr. because they have the reference for it now. They don't have to kind of wait for someone to grow up or anything like that. They become older now. That's one of the great things about
Yeah,
CGI and practical effects.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And speaking of great actors, geez, Robert Downey Jr. is unbelievable.
Yeah. Like Robert Downey Jr., he had a decent career initially, however, then just plummeted. And then when Iron Man came out, just skyrocketed.
Yeah, I think he was a bit of a Hollywood bad boy for a while, so I think people were hesitant to work with him. But
Y-
he
Yeah, because like
made,
Tony
and that's
Stark pretty much was kind of him at that time. It was like at that time he was, I think at the time he was like heavily addicted to drugs, and eventually he got off it. He kind of was like a Hollywood playboy at the time, so Tony Stark just kind of seemed like a natural character for him.
and it's actually really, I mean, it's not great that people do that to themselves, obviously, but it's so great when people learn from their mistakes, and it's also great that Hollywood gave him a second shot. It's like allow someone to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then become the great guy that he is now. I mean, I've heard nothing but great stories about people that have worked with him, especially throughout all of the Iron Man movies and Avengers stuff. Apparently, he's just the greatest guy to work with. He's really cool.
Yeah, because especially when it comes to different actors, like there's so many great actors out there. Of course, there's also so many like terrible ones out there. Like there's actors I rag on because they make so many bad things, but then when you kind of look into why they do that, it is understandable. Like Nicolas Cage is a great example. Like he does a few good films every now and then, like say Face Off. However, every now and then he just gets some of the most abysmal trash you can have, like Wicker Man. Uh, and apparently.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and I found out the reason why that happens because he's very bad with money. So he takes pretty much as many jobs as he can. However, the reason why he's bad with money is because he buys as many weird things as he can, ranging from old comic books like old collectibles to
Yeah.
mansions to dinosaur bones.
What? I didn't know that about the dinosaur bones. Let's get rid
Yeah,
of
because it's
some.
mainly the reason like why he takes all these jobs, even the worst ones, is basically so he's able to pay off debt so he can still get money in. Like, because every now and then he does get a great film, like Face Off, or like the one he did with Cher. I forget what that one was called.
Mm, I'm not sure. What was the Vegas? Was it Fear and Loathing? No, that's
Leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
few
I
all the
actually,
Vegas ones. I always get them confused. There's another one with Johnny Depp, I think. Fear and Loathing
yeah,
in Las Vegas or something.
yeah, like with
Yeah.
Leaving Las Vegas, I actually figured out a fun fact about that film. Well, it's not that fun, but it's a fact.
What is it?
Uh, so apparently the guy who wrote the book, like the original book that the film was based on, his life was a lot more closer to the character than I guess he ever wanted to admit, because his only ever other writing credit was like say like episodes for TV shows, and that's the whole thing with the character. He's just like say a writer who's completely failed and he wants to kill himself pretty much. And so when it comes to the actual writer of the book, he wrote Leaving Las Vegas, and I think that just after he sold the rights to a film company, the one that eventually made the film, he offed himself.
No,
Yeah, like, he pretty much offed himself, like, just after that happened.
I did not know that. That's crazy. Damn, man, you're
Yeah.
like an encyclopedia of movies.
When it comes to, like, old films or old actors, I can tell you as much as you wanna know about Andy Kaufman or John Belushi. When it comes to old stuff like that, I know a lot.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
like, it
they do say write what you know, I guess, but which says a lot
yeah.
about George Lucas. I want to know where he's been in the universe.
Yeah, like, when it comes to Star Wars, I've never been a huge fan of it, which is really ironic because I was born on Star Wars Day.
No way. Oh man. So do you hate it because it takes away all the attention from your birthday?
No, 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 no. I just don't like the films. Like, I appreciate the films, I just don't like them.
I think they're just a bit of entertainment value. Yeah, I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Like, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I like to watch them when I just need some entertainment. I think they're fun,
I
you know.
get that.
Yeah, and some of the action sequences. I remember when what was it, the Sith, or Revenge of the Sith, or whatever it was called. One of the, I think it
Yeah.
was episode 1 or 2 or something.
Uh,
And man, some of the action sequences when he's fighting with the lightsaber, that's like the Sith is fighting with that sort of what is it, like the long lightsaber that's more like a staff, and then he breaks it in two, and he's got two lightsabers, and oh
oh,
man, it's so cool.
yeah, Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, yeah, yeah, exactly. Man,
Yeah,
he's amazing. That actor, I think, because the actor is actually the same as the stunt guy, right? Like the stunt guy, he does all his own stunts, I think.
nice.
I think it's the same guy, and he does all of that action sequences. He's amazing.
All right, well, I'll be sure to check into that soon, just to make
Yeah,
sure.
he's pretty cool. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
you better, because I quote things and they're not necessarily true. I just it's like, wait, did I dream that, or was that did that actually happen?
I've dreamt really weird things. Like there's sometimes where you just dream something that just seems so real, and then when you wake up, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's pretty
I
weird,
I
eh?
had I had like the strangest dream of my life not too long ago, actually.
What's that?
Like, yeah, I dreamt that out of nowhere I got a message on Instagram from Dwayne Johnson, and we were just texting. And when I woke up, I was like, that was a dream. Like, it felt so weirdly realistic.
You're like, damn it! I thought I was gonna get to talk to Dwayne, the Rock.
Shit.
He'd be super cool to interview. I reckon he's such a cool dude.
I doubt he'd take any time for an interview like this.
Mate, hey, come on. I took some time for an interview like this.
Yeah,
I think you're worth every minute.
thank you. Wait, because of Dwayne Johnson, he's going from the Tooth Fairy to Jumanji. I don't know.
Hey, that latest Jumanji film was fun too, actually. I was watching that with my niece. She thinks it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
like the first Jumanji film, like not the Robin Williams one, like the first 2017 one. Uh, I I walked out of that movie.
Oh, and
Like,
that had Robin Williams in it, the first one.
no, I'm talking about the 2017 one.
Oh, the 17 one. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the 17 one. Like when I was watching it, I just stood up and walked out of the room.
Oh, man. Is that because you'd seen the originals and you thought, no, no Robin
Yeah, like
Williams? Nah.
I'd seen the original one, and I have a large amount of respect for Robin Williams, and so seeing something like this, like try to act as if it's on the same level as the original one, and then just and that really does suck in general.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. I think we lost.
Yeah, I could tell because it really went silent for a moment.
Yeah, yeah. Only for about 3 seconds. It was all
All
good.
right, all right, but yeah,
Yeah.
all right, but yes, like when it comes to say like you as an actual actor,
Hmm.
when it comes like to some other things like what would you consider to be your dream role?
Dream role, man. I think that'd come down to one of my favorite films, really, Shawshank Redemption.
Okay,
That
like Andy Dufresne.
that's Yeah, exactly. Andy Dufresne would be an incredible. I mean, after you watch it, you're like, you can't imagine anyone else playing Andy Dufresne. But that
Yeah,
film, for me, that film is as close to perfect as a film can be. I mean, it's historically accurate. It tells this beautiful story. It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel sad. It makes you feel angry and frustrated. It's got everything in it. And for me, the writing is unbelievable. The lighting, the cinematography, the acting, the performances were incredible. I mean, for me, that's, like I said, it's just the closest thing to a perfect film. And I love watching it. I can watch it all day, every day, 100 times a day. Like, yeah.
yeah.
So
I
for
actually don't.
me, Andy Dufresne.
All right, nice. Yeah, because I don't remember who said this. Remember, like some magazine, like shortly after the movie came out, the first thing they called it was the greatest film ever made.
I'm not surprised. And it's really interesting. I quite often ask people, what are your favorite films? And anyone who's watched Shawshank Redemption, usually that's in their top three.
Yeah, like, personally, my favorite one has to be Man on the Moon.
Oh, actually, oh, you mean about the with Jim Carrey?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great film. He
yeah,
was so connected to that. Like he still talks about that film.
Yeah, like it was a great film. Like Andy Kaufman is one of my all-time favorite comedians. Like my comedian list goes from Robin Williams, George Carlin, Andy Kaufman.
Well, this is interesting. So we've just gone from Andy Dufresne to Andy Kaufman. Maybe there's something in the Andy name. Yeah, but no, that film's great. Really great.
Yeah, it's like there were a
What are
couple
some?
missed opportunities when it came to the accuracy of some scenes, but I loved it overall.
Oh, so you know Andy Kaufman's work pretty well in his life?
Very much so. Like as mentioned before, I'm a sculptor, and I literally have a life-size figure of him I'm working on right now in the corner of my room.
Really? So is that what you do? You do that for a living? Because you're amazing at that stuff.
That's what I plan to do for a living. If I can, I would love to work for a wax museum like Madame Tussauds.
Yeah, cool. Have you sent your stuff to them, or have you sent
Uh,
a link to your Instagram or anything?
I'm planning on finishing up Andy first, and maybe kind of using that as kind of like my original kind of piece to kind of show that off.
Well, I mean, geez, man, I've seen some of your work and it looks incredible. I think, geez, there's no time like the present. Don't forget that. I mean, even if you approach them now and then if they pass, you can always approach them again next year or the year after. But I think now's a really good time to reach out to people that are in charge because of COVID, people seem to, well, depending on which industry you're in, I guess, but there's some people, especially in the entertainment industry, are not as busy as they used to be. I've been talking to some friends who've been very successful in TV and Netflix, and they've got shows on Netflix at the moment and movies and just been released, and they said they haven't worked for a year. So it's it's actually a really good time to reach out to people, especially in the entertainment industry, because they're more available than they were in 2019.
Yeah, cause all I've been doing, I've been working on my own things, like say like my sculptures, like cause I've been trying to branch out with different types of sculptures, like say like miniatures or even puppets. Cause I recently sculpted a caricature puppet of Joe Pesci.
Really,
Yeah, which we're just waiting to get the silicone for it so I can make the actual mold of it, but I have the latex and all that, so that should work fine.
man, that's crazy. So you can just make that without, because usually with latex, they usually need the person, right? I don't really know much about it, but my
When it
experience with
when it
latex is they need your face to put the latex on, so then they recreate that.
like you're thinking of plaster. Uh,
Oh,
when
really?
it Yeah, like it's like the face casts are made out of plaster. Uh, the casts of sculptures and such, those are usually made out of silicone, which is a liquid rubber.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, it's meant to flow in all the cracks and crevices, get all the details. And so once you pull off the silicone, it has all the imprints inside, so you can pour in like any solution you want in there, like say like whether it be latex, plastic, more silicone, then it'll actually recreate, say, an accurate version of the sculpture that you just casted.
Okay, so yeah, of course. I was skipping the plaster step. Sorry, go
Because
on.
like it's like the ones that you're thinking of are basically like the face cast, like say the realistic faces.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, those are called life casts or death casts, depending on which one is done first. And basically, it's done with just like say placing plaster strips over someone's face and making a cast inside of there, so then you have the actual face.
It's awesome.
It's very commonly used when they're making either prosthetics for films or just say for historical reasons.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah, I had actually, speaking of that movie Grief, I ended up having to have a prosthetic for that as well. And
nice. Did you have to do the plaster
there's
cast?
no, no, I didn't actually.
Yeah.
They basically just sort of molded it onto, well, yeah, if the movie ever gets released, I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but it's molded onto my face.
All right.
So it's yeah, so it's kind of like an extra layer of skin.
All right. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, so like when it comes to some of your works, uh, arguably your most famous recent work is probably Mafia Definitive Edition as Tommy Angelo. How did you feel about
There
the
you go.
process of How did you feel
That's
about the
how
process?
we met.
How did you feel about the process of making that game?
Oh man, look, that was an insane learning experience. I had never worked on a game before, and then all of a sudden I had the lead character. I was in the studio every day for months and months and months, and it was incredible. I mean, we were all the actors that worked on it, we were all talking about how great a learning experience that was. And to be honest, when you shoot something like that where you're wearing a helmet and the camera is literally 6 inches from your face, and you've got to try and ignore that camera and connect with your scene partner to act and pretend that the camera's not there. I got to tell you, man, the first sort of week or two, it was very disconcerting because I'm like, how do I? It's sort of it's in your field of vision. So you're like, how do I not look at this camera, and how do I see the other person I'm trying to have this scene with?
Here's your cut. Sorry, shit. I didn't mean to hit you in the fucking head, dude.
It's okay. I'm wearing a helmet. I didn't even feel it.
And it really, going back to the theater stuff, it really felt a lot like rehearsing for theater as well, because you don't actually have any real set there like you do on a film. It's real set. But on a video game, you've got to imagine that that box over there is the bar in Salieri's bar, right? Or you've got to imagine that this frame of wood is the car we're driving in, or whatever. And so the thing that I learnt was just that they really need the movement so that they can place that movement into the game in the way they want it. But they also need your facial expressions and all that stuff to try and make it as real as possible, which is why they have that camera mounted so close to your face. So
Yeah,
that was a huge, huge learning curve, and I loved every second of it.
yeah, because I was actually watching behind the scenes footage of like Mafia 3 and such, which had the same process. And like, excuse my language, but that looked like an absolute mind fuck. Cause
It
because
is,
because
man.
watching that it did like I saw to the wireframe cars they had with like the really loose hinge doors that they would just have
Yep,
to pretend is there. It's just like a completely
man.
just like blue room that they have to work in.
Well, there were times where we had to add a person like from behind the scenes to come in and like some of the crew, one of the crew members would come in and hold the door so that it didn't slam, or hold it closed so that it didn't open. Because if they're not wearing any of the markers that are traced on the volume, see, because do you know,
Then it wouldn't
like,
show
so
up.
basically, yeah, for the people at home that don't know too much about this, when you walk onto what they call the volume, which in film terms is like a sound stage, right? It's like the studio. So you walk into this big open space, it's the size of a couple of basketball courts, and you're surrounded by all these cameras there. They're lined along the roof, along the walls, on all sides. So at any time, the maker can they're recording every single angle of you on the soundstage or on the volume. And then when it comes time to making the video game, they can take any angle they want because they've got an angle from every camera that's around that volume. And so it's just amazing what they can do with that, because they don't need to, like, different to film, they don't need to ask you to cut and reset and start again and go back to one and all that stuff. So similar to theater, where you don't have to worry about where the camera is when you're doing your performance, because they'll just switch angles whenever they need, camera angles. It's incredible.
Yeah, because I actually remember hearing that, like that whole process. It's easier and harder to do that at the exact same time because it's harder for the actors because, as you mentioned before, you don't really have say much reference and visual reference. Because I remember Ward even mentioned the same thing on Saturday and mentioning like saying like it's really hard to kind of get the same physical reference that you need when you don't see anything. You've got to kind of pretend something's there or not.
Yeah,
However,
exactly.
however, it's also much easier for the animators too because yeah, as mentioned before, they have every camera angle they want. They can do whatever
Yeah.
they want at that point. So they have so much free reign.
And that's where the director and the performance directors come in, because you're hoping that the other actor is imagining the same thing that you're imagining. So it's like you might, like, if someone says, okay, that's a beer, and you're like, okay, well, so I'm going to make that a pint of beer, but they might be thinking of this massive, like 2 liter beer or something. And so it's like a gallon of beer or something. So it's like you got to hope that you're imagining the same thing, so that when it comes to miming whatever's there or imagining what that thing is, then you're imagining the same thing. And so that's, yeah. Oh, actually, a really good example of that would be the death of art at the end of the game. Um, basically, when Sam Trupani and Tommy are talking to each other, so me and Don DePetta, and the first time we shot that, we were looking straight at each other, and they kind of put him up on a platform. but it wasn't as high as what's in the museum at the in the game in Death of Art. So in Death of Art, he's like 2 stories high, and he's looking down at me from a great height. And we didn't realize that it was going to be that high. So we just thought we were just talking eye to eye, and I was kind of looking up at him, and he was probably only maybe 15, 20 feet above the ground. So he wasn't that high. And they said, cut. No, 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 no. And they said to Don, you need to be looking further down because it's very high up. And they said, Andrew, you need to be looking way, way up because he's way up there. And so we sort of were given these eye line references. And the strangest thing is, I'm trying to yell up to him, but he's, you know, 50 feet lower than where I'm looking. And we're having this conversation. He's talking at the ground. I'm talking at the ceiling, and it's as if we're trying to connect, as if we're having a conversation, looking at each other, and trying so hard not to let our ears guide our eyes, because if I'm delivering my next line to him, I'm going to want to look at where the sound is coming from. I'm not going to want to look at the ceiling. So it was really hard. That was one of the hardest. It was sort of one of the biggest challenges, I think, to try and not look at him while I'm delivering those lines at him, because they're so directed. We're both so angry. I mean, he makes Tommy really pissed off in that scene.
That is a great advantage and disadvantage when it comes to motion capture, because you're able to get so many physical emotions out of it. However, for the actual actors, it is kind of difficult to do stuff like that. And on the topic of directors, how is Hayden Blackman as a person? Because I've heard a lot of good things about him.
Yeah, Hayden's great. We actually, our main director throughout the whole thing was Dara O'Farrell. So Hayden was overseeing it all, but we didn't actually get to see him every day, unfortunately. But we saw him a lot at the beginning, and then he'd sort of pop his head in every now and then to just sort of check in with us. But Hayden and Dara have worked together for many years, and they trust each other and they know each other very well. In fact, the first time I saw them together, it was like they were good old friends. So I think they know each other from back in Star Wars days, because Hayden used to work a lot with George Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is and that actually brings me to the amazing experience of being in the volume where we were, because it's where they shot a lot of the original Star Wars model recordings. So all the Death
Oh,
Star and all the stuff where you see the Death Star blow up and all that stuff, all of that was filmed in the same studio where we shot Mafia Definitive Edition.
must have felt surreal as hell.
Oh man, they had photos up lining the hallways, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is like a commemoration of Star Wars." It was so amazing, man. You just felt like you were walked into a piece of history, like very important cinematic history. But but Hayden was wonderful, and we got to talk a few times about the character and about the storyline, and just there's this thing called I don't know if you've ever heard of this writer's book called Save the Cat.
I
But the
believe so.
idea is that when you write a script and you've got a hero of the storyline, it's important to bring the audience on their side. And the best way to do that is for them to do something very selfless, very heroic, and so the idea is, an example that's given in the book is, yeah, get your character to save a cat from a tree, like that's why it's literally called Save the Cat. And so in Mafia Definitive Edition, when he lets the prostitute go, tells her to leave town. That's sort of showing that Tommy's a good guy.
Maybe you got him talking about our business from time to time, and maybe Don Morello offered you some money to spill what you heard.
No, Sam, trust me. I don't say nothing. He knows that.
Well, the Don's losing a lot of money because someone can't keep their mouth shut.
I was just bumping guns with some of Morello's girls. I didn't mean nothing by it. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I won't never open my mouth again.
I know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You scared then? Good. Don't you ever forget how it feels to be this scared. To know you're just one twitch away from a hole in the ground. Because if you ever show your face in this town again, they're gonna find you with 2 in the head. Do you understand? Lucky for you, Sam's got a big heart. Get dressed and make tracks. This place is gonna blow soon.
Thank you.
Just don't come back and we're square.
Also, when he plants the bomb underneath the car, and the wrong person comes to start the car, and it's the woman, and he tries to stop it, and that sort of affects the rest of his life. Really, that's one of the biggest mistakes he makes.
Hey! Stop! No, no, no.
And so there's all these things that the audience goes, okay, so Tommy's a badass mafia guy, but he's not actually a bad person. He's just doing this because he needs to, for the money and for the work and to support his wife and all that sort of thing. And so, I mean, he's sent to kill so many people. He's sent to kill Frank, and he doesn't kill Frank. Like, he's sent to kill all these people that you go, no, don't kill Frank. Don't kill the prostitute. What did they do? That's really
Yeah,
bad. And then he doesn't do it. And so that's what brings the audience onto his side, I think, and makes
yeah,
you
and
want to
actually,
root for him because you
kind
know
of
he's a
funny
good guy.
thing about the car scene actually is like the original one plays out slightly differently from the very first game, and it's so much funnier.
Christ. No, no, no! Hey, stop! Shit! Damn. That's one hot dame.
Oh,
Be- be-
well,
be-
that's.
Because because
Oh,
here's what
sorry.
happens. The original game plays out very similarly. Basically, like, he placed the bomb underneath the car. The woman walks out. He's like, "Wait, no, stop!" And when she blows up, instead of like freaking out, he goes, "That's one hot dang." It's
That's
like,
right. They
what the?
told me that's what happened.
It's like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
yeah.
Like,
It's like, why do you
it
care for
completely
this guy? He
ruins the
doesn't
whole
care.
scene.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that the first scene with Sarah was very different too. Like, didn't they
Yeah,
end up
yeah.
having a love scene or something?
Yeah, because what happens in the original game, like Sarah has barely any screen time in the original game. She's seen once, she's mentioned a couple times. The only time she's seen is in a mission where it plays out very similarly to the final game. You beat up a bunch of guys, you walk her home, and it just ends off with her and Tommy having sex, and then you never see her again. She only gets ever mentioned.
Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, Nicole Sandoval was our producer, and I mean, she was never going to let that happen because it's like, well, what's the point? We don't see why these two love each other, and that's a very important part of the story. I mean, the whole reason why Tommy's doing everything he does is because he's fallen in love, he has a family, and he realizes that he can't keep living this life. And
Yeah, I
so if there's
the
no
scene.
connection between him and Sarah, then what's the point? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I feel like the scene in the remake is so much nicer because I was generally kind of surprised, like say like how they just made like say they just hang out and he hugs her. It's like that's so much nicer because it actually establishes something between these two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I think it was I think Nicole and Hayden, I think they really handled that really well. And also, actually, speaking of yeah, speaking of talking and working with Hayden, one of the first things that Hayden said to me was, don't look at the original Mafia. He said he goes, I want this to be completely new from the ground up. I don't want you to be swayed by any of the original Mafia. He goes, I just want you to bring what you bring to it, and I've he said I've rewritten the script, and I mean his knowledge of Chicago old school prohibition talk is unbelievable. I mean, some of the expressions, there were words he was using that aren't even used anymore, and he knew exactly what they meant, and he it just rolls off the tongue for him. He just speaks it.
Yeah, I actually remember there was actually one word in the game. I was like, what the hell does that mean? It was there's a scene in this mission Sarah where
Was it
uh
Dangle?
no, not Dangle. Billy says, let's see what you got, cake eater. I was like, the hell does that mean? Is he fat? What does that mean?
Well, then let's see what you got, cake eater.
Cake
Uh
eater.
yeah. I figured out kind of what that means. Like it basically just means like someone who does not focus on the seriousness of some things. Basically just means like a party going guy.
Yeah,
Uh
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like
It's
actually it's kind of a good thing he didn't have you look at the original game. In the last mission when he figures out Paulie is dead, like when Sam calls him, instead of in the remake going like Sam, Paulie's dead. Like instead of going like that, in the original game he goes, Sam, it's me. Paulie's dead.
Paulie?
Sam? It's Tom. Paulie's dead. I
Christ. I knew it.
There's like no emotion to it. It's like what the hell are you?
well, yeah, actually, it's funny you bring that up because that scene was, I mean, all the scenes are important to me, but there was something very specific I wanted to do with that scene. And I was never sure when we were shooting it if I did what I wanted to do. And it's really hard to be objective because you're obviously very subjective when you're doing scenes and you're in it, and you can't see it from the outside looking in. And actually, Don DePetta was really kind to me because he was there, obviously, sort of off screen doing the phone call with me, and so he was watching what I was doing, and I think we did about maybe 3 takes of that scene, and they as I said, Dara, the director, was wonderful to work with, and he would give you extra takes if you wanted to. And I kind of said, "Oh, I think I want to do it again." And Dara was like, "Well, I think we got it, but I'm happy to do it again if you want." And then Don was very kind, and he said, "No, man, that was definitely it." And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll trust you guys because I didn't feel like it was what I wanted to do, but it was now watching it back and seeing it in the game and seeing it in context, it seems to work. But at the time, I was like, oh man, I feel like I could just do something slightly different there.
Paulie,
Sam, it's me. It's Tom.
where's Paulie?
He's dead. I'm looking at him slumped over in the hallway, torn a fucking skull.
Oh, God. I was calling to warn him.
About what?
Jesus Christ. I owe you fellas my life 3 times over.
Warn him about what, Sam?
Salieri. He found out about the bank job. You're in deep shit, Tom.
Anyway, it's one of those things. It's art is never perfect, right? You know, from your sculpting,
Yeah,
I'm sure you're never fully satisfied. You're like, oh, I
yeah,
could have just done that different, but now I can't because it's done.
yeah. Because when it comes to the game, I actually remember when we were talking to Don a while back. He mentioned how he decided to watch all the cutscenes from the original game, and one thing he did notice was that Sam was so underdeveloped in the original game, which yeah, is true. The only times you ever see him, you barely get to see him, or he's a damsel in distress. So you don't really get to know that much about him. And so the remake's adaptation of the characters, like all the characters in general, was so much better. Salieri's given actual personality. He's shown to actually be nice but aggressive. Paulie kind of switches back and forth between his like kind of tones. Sam has a lot more personality, and Tommy actually has more than one manner of speech, because
yeah,
the the original Tommy, he would only speak in one tone. Because like in Running Man, when Dino and Lou smash in his window,
yeah, yep.
in the remake he of course goes like Jesus. In the original he just goes Jesus.
Jesus.
We got you, you little rat. Mr. Morello's pretty angry with you. We're gonna have to teach you a little lesson so you remember that it ain't right.
They're smashing in your window, and you're just going like, Jesus.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. I hope they're okay.
Exactly. It's like, wow. Oh no, my window.
Oh, I'm
I
gonna have
paid
to get that fixed later.
I paid good money for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work longer hours to get that fixed.
Jesus. Well, damn.
Well, damn. And oh, by the way, please don't hurt me.
Uh, I love how that scene plays out too in the original game because like they smash his window. He goes, Jesus. He gets pulled out of the car. They just beat up the car. They don't like nothing is said. The only person who says anything is Dino, and he just says like saying this teacher for working with Salieri's boys. Smash his face in Lou, and then Tommy just runs away. That's it.
He's like, I'm out of here.
Exactly. He doesn't say anything. He just walks.
Oh man. Oh, he just walks. He doesn't even run.
Kind of actually, yeah, because the original game, the walking was incredibly slow, and the running was at most a light jog.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Oh
ba-
man,
so
I
basically,
really should try the original game. I've never tried
uh,
it. I've never.
it's on
I,
Steam if you ever want to try it out. The PC version is of course superior, which is the Steam version. But like they should
yeah.
just call that mission jogging, man. It's definitely not running.
Yeah, well, that's actually speaking of what Don DePeto was saying about developing the character more. I think that's also testament to not only the evolution of storytelling, but also the sophistication of the audience these days. I think audiences, we're so lucky now with this golden era of television, where television, ever since like I think the X Files were probably one of the first to do it, and then 24 as well, where they started to make television that was more like film, and so they were spending more money on storytelling, and they were really focusing on writing these amazing scripts, and so we've been spoiled with this great writing. I mean, you look at things like Ozark and Breaking Bad and all these incredible storylines, and you go, I mean, that's what we expect now. So with a video game, sure, the gamers, a lot of gamers just want to play the game. Like I showed my nephew the game, and he's a huge Fortnite, so he's not used to playing a game that has a storyline. He just wants to go and kick butt, right? And so you've got that combination of gamers who want to play those sorts of games, and then gamers who actually want to play a storyline and feel like they're part of the story. And so I think that's been really magnified now with all the stuff that we're used to as audience members, watching all these amazing films and television. And so you can't, and also actually the point that I guess I'm trying to make is that the writers of the original one probably didn't want to give away that Sam was going to be the guy who double crossed them at the end. And so I think they probably didn't want to highlight Sam too much to sort of give that away. Whereas the new way of doing that is to go, okay, well, let's show Sam as the good guy. He's the friend. He's there for them. He's going to support them. But hey, guess what? Actually, he just believes in the job and the family, and he's completely loyal to a fault. And so he'll do whatever it takes to do his job and do it well and what's expected of him. Yeah, it's not necessarily that he's a bad guy. He's just doing what he thinks is the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's one of the best things when it comes, like, say, the remake, because they're able to expand the story so much better. Because, like there have been story-based games through years, like, say, arguably starting off with, say, those text-based games. However, arguably around the time of the original Mafia, they started doing, like, genuine story-based games. Like, nowadays, we kind of expect it. Games like Uncharted, The Last of Us, or even the other Mafia games like Mafia 2 or Definitive Edition, we expect the heavy story-based games. And I feel like
Yeah,
Mafia Definitive Edition is a great example on how to do a good one like that, where it's short, it's sweet. However, there's a lot of story in there you have to focus on if you wanna experience that type of story to it.
for sure. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, that brings up a good point. When we were shooting the game, we were like obviously as you know, we never shot chronologically. I was only ever given the parts of the script that we were about to shoot within the next 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. So I never knew the beginning to end, the whole script. And in fact, they were still writing it while we were shooting it. So it's really hard. Like part of well, my technique, and I think most actors' techniques, is you look at where a character starts and where they end to give you an idea of the arc of the storyline, the intensity you need to go through to build to the climax, and then also then to finish off the finale, the ending. And so there's a lot of that can influence the choices you make as an actor, and to not have the full script from start to finish on before the day one of shooting is very, very unusual for me because I've never worked in video games. I don't know if that's how they normally work, but there's so much secrecy around the industry because they're worried it's going to leak and they don't want anything to
Yeah.
sort of be prematurely announced. And we had to sign all these waivers and non-disclosure agreements, and we had to actually give our phone every day when I signed on to set. You had to go past this sort of sign-in desk, and when you signed in, you had to relinquish your phone, and they would take the phone and they'd put tamper-proof tape that they would wrap around all of the cameras on both the front and back of your phone, and then they'd give you your phone back so that you still had your phone through the day, but you couldn't use it as a camera. You could only use it as a phone. And then at the end of the day, you would have to sign out. And as you signed out, they'd ask for your phone back to make sure you hadn't messed with the tamper-proof tape. And then they would remove the tamper-proof tape. So
Okay.
it's hugely secretive.
Yeah, because one thing I have seen, that there are a lot of games that do leak every now and then. Like say, like The Last of Us Part Two, there was a lot of leaks before that game came out, and of course, I know with Mafia, there was a lot of NDAs at the time. However, like as some of those like have, of course, probably expired by now. So of course, the game is now out. Ward did mention one interesting thing actually, that apparently the original title he was originally told the game was Scotch, which is actually kind of
Scotch,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, which is actually kind of funny because the working title for Mafia 3 was Bourbon. Uh,
Uh,
and
yep.
and so when it comes to a couple of these things, now that the NDAs are pretty much up, is there anything that we have not heard that you feel like is fine to say now?
Oh, gee, let me think. It went from yeah, it was Scotch. I think there was even a second name they gave it. I mean, originally it was Scotch, but then there was something else. I can't, the name escapes me now because I'm so used to being allowed to say Mafia. Because that's the other thing. Like they said, oh, you can't even tell your friends you're working on a video game. And I'm like, what? They're like, and sure as hell, don't mention Scotch, don't mention any of that. And we didn't know it was Mafia until the first day we gathered as like Glenn Taranto, who plays Don Salieri. He and I had already done some test shoots probably a month before we met the rest of the cast. And so when we got together as a table read with the main cast, they finally told us, "Hey guys, by the way, this is a remake of the original Mafia game." We're like, "Oh shit, we had no idea." Like that was huge, man. You're really testing my memory now because we're going back. What year was that? 2000. I was going to say 1918, 2018, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
2018.
because like some of the things I've been told by ones like Jeremy and Don, they mentioned that they were originally told it was not a game. They were originally told it was going to be a film. However, eventually they were told it was going to be a game. However, people like Ward Roberts, since he joined later on, he said he was told from the very beginning it was going to be a game. Were
Yeah,
you
yeah,
told
I
it?
think
Were you told it was originally going to be a film? And if you were, then at what point were you told it was going to be a game?
I was, man. That's a really interesting. Actually, that was an interesting experience. So basically, ironically, I was at E3 in LA, and so I was surrounded by video games. And my manager calls me and he goes, "Hey, I've got you this audition. I just sent you the script. They need you to be in Calabasas in like an hour." Now, I think it was a Friday night during peak hour in LA. It was like 4 or 5 p.m. and I needed to be there by like, I don't know, 5 or 6 p.m. I can't really remember. But I was like, man, I'm not going to make it. I'm downtown LA. You want me to get to Calabasas on a good day? That's a 40-minute drive. In rush hour, that's going to be over probably an hour and a half. And so I was just saying,
That's right.
I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna have to put a self tape down unless they can see me on a different day. And he said, let me contact them. And so he contacts them, and they said, nah, they're not auditioning any other day because Hayden was there, I think, and he had come down, and I think Nicole was there as well, and they'd come down from San Francisco, and so they had to get back to San Francisco because that's where they're based up there, and the Bay Area. And anyway, so I said, look, I'm gonna have to put down a self tape. And my manager's like, "Oh, I don't think you should do that. You need to try and get in the room because they're not even going to look at the self-tape if they find what they need in the room." And my manager's very savvy. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He's worked in casting. And I said, "Look, that's all I can do. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get there." So I went home that night and I put it down. Uh, and basically, I didn't even have enough time to learn it. So I got very familiar with it, and I kind of did like a Marlon Brando Godfather technique. I don't know if you've heard of what Marlon Brando did in Godfather, but he wrote his lines. They had his lines written behind the camera so that he didn't have to try and remember them. If he slipped up, he could just read them straight off while they're shooting. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote the lines down. And what I did was every time there was a beat change, what we call a beat change or a change of thought, a change of mood in the scene, because it was a monologue. It was the final monologue from the original Mafia, by the way. And
Oh.
You know, the world isn't run by the laws written on paper. It's run by people. Some according to laws, others not. It depends on each individual how his world will be, how he makes it. And you also need a whole lot of luck, so that somebody else doesn't make your life hell. And it ain't as simple as they tell you in grade school. But it is good to have strong values and to maintain them in marriage, in crime, in war. Always and everywhere. I messed up. So did Paulie and Sam. We wanted a better life, but in the end, we were a lot worse off than most other people. You know, I think it's important to keep a balance in things. Yeah, balance, that's the right word. Because the guy who wants too much risks losing absolutely everything. Of course, the guy who wants too little from life might not get anything at all.
yeah, and so I would, every time there was a beat change, I'd write that new beat on a different piece of paper, and I pinned it up around the camera, so like top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And every time I needed to read the lines, I would just read it, and as I was reading it, I was saying it, and I played it back. I only did one take. I played it back, and it looked all right. And so I was like, oh, it just looks like I'm thinking. And so I sent it off, and I hadn't heard anything. And at this stage, I thought it was a feature film, and I thought, well, they're not going to cast a feature film from a monologue because they're going to want to see how you interact with other actors. So yeah, sort of 3 days went past, or maybe 5. And I contacted my manager and I said, look, man, I haven't heard anything. They haven't downloaded it from WeTransfer because WeTransfer tells you when it's been downloaded at the other end from the person you sent it to. And I said, look, they haven't even downloaded it yet. Can you just make sure they received it? So he goes, oh, I told you not to self-tape. They've probably already cast and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, can you give him a call? And he goes, all right, I'll give him a call and see. So he calls them and they said, yep, they've received it. And then next thing I know, they've finally downloaded it. And then about a week or two went past. And at this point in feature films, if they haven't called within 2 weeks, then you haven't got the role. So you just sort of forget about it and move on. I've suddenly got this email after 2 weeks going, hey, we liked your self-tape. We'd like to call you in. Can you please be in the room this time? We've got new scripts attached. I had 3 different scenes. I had a scene with they included one of the scenes with Detective Norman and a couple of other things. And I went into the room and there was Hayden and Nicole. I walked in. I'd never been to this casting office before, and I had no idea where I was going. And I'm walking around aimlessly, and Nicole just kind of steps out of the restroom, and she's like, "Oh, Andrew," and I'm like, "Yeah, hi." And I didn't at this point. I had no idea who Nicole was, and she goes, I figured she must have been something to do with casting, and she goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, follow me. It's a bit of a rabbit warren around here." So I followed her and went into the audition and worked with Hayden, and he was great to work with. We worked the scene several times, and I gave him my idea of how the scene was, and he gave me his idea, and he goes, "Look, I need to be honest with you. This is not actually a feature film. It's a video game." And I went, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "I don't know what that means. Does that mean 2 weeks of work, 2 months of work? How long is this going to take? And if I book it, what does it involve?" Anyway, long story, already long, but a little bit shorter. I ended up booking it, and it took, I think, 4 or 5 months to shoot it. So it was great. It was a wonderful experience.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that statement alone gives me say a few different questions. So I'll run them by a little quick. So you said this is the monologue from the original Mafia. So are you talking about the one in the final game where it was talking about family, or do you mean the one that was like, some laws are run by the people?
Yeah, exactly that one. The laws run by the people, and yeah, all that stuff. And
Okay, yeah,
uh,
yeah. Because actually, like a decent amount of fans were like, "Oh, why wasn't that in the remake?" Because that's one thing I will say that dialogue was a lot better than the original, but the remake is still amazing though. Like out of
yeah,
that,
a lot of fans have asked me if I would do that actually, if I would do that monologue. Who
all
knows?
right,
Maybe I'll do
okay.
it. Maybe I
And
will.
so, well, from the script changes, as you mentioned before, there's a bunch of different changes to the script. Was there any like huge changes? Like, was there like say like segments that were completely cut out? Was there things like were there like really important changes to the character that were cut out that were completely changed?
Um, Look, I'm trying to remember. There definitely was some chunks cut out. Well, actually, there was more. Yeah, okay. The church scene. The church scene is the first thing that comes to mind. So you know how he goes into the church and the priest is there and he's like, which one of these men could have saved a life or blah blah blah, which one? And
Yeah,
then the guy comes from behind the pillar and says, none of them, Father. And then he tries to shoot me, and then Sam shoots him, and then I tell him, I say that these were not good people and blah blah blah.
These men were criminals, Father. Thieves. Rapists. Killers.
And God would have embraced them if they'd asked for forgiveness. Now, which one of these men might have sought redemption by working with the poor? Which one might have saved just one life?
None of us, Father. You bastard. If you have any confessions to make, you better do it quick.
No more bloodshed, please!
I'm sorry, Father. Consider this an act of divine retribution.
That make us even.
There was a bit of a monologue there that was cut out.
and
Basically,
yeah, and the original game was also a monologue there too, where he says like um
he
uh
says something about you want to believe that these guys are going to be forgiven, that they've got some salvation or something. I don't know. He
yeah,
talks
yeah,
about.
yeah. That's actually from the original too, because the original game there was a monologue he has with the priest since it's only him and the priest. And one thing he says directly to him was like saying like, um, "I got some questions about your conscience, Father. Billy did not do a lot of good in life, so why would you think he would do a lot good when dead?" And basically, then he like walks away.
What have you done, my son? Such suffering for nothing. God is forgiving, but this is terrible. Don't you know murder is the greatest sin?
I know, Father. But somehow everything got fouled up. I made a mistake somewhere.
So many people have died without reason. They could have done much more with their lives.
Father, these people were criminals, cheats, murderers. The one lying in the front wanted to rape my girl. Maybe God wanted it this way. A lot of people will have an easier life because of this.
Yes, the Lord works in mysterious ways. But what about you? You can look yourself in the face? Your hands are stained with blood that you'll never wash off.
I know that, Father.
Look around you. Such a waste. We'll have to consecrate the church again. Everything is shot up. I can't let my parishioners in here. What am I going to do?
Maybe this'll help? Pray for my soul, Father. I'll need it.
I will, my son. I certainly will.
By the way, Father, your little speech about Billy, I'm wondering about your conscience. Billy wasn't such a good person, and he didn't do good when he was alive.
Okay, yeah. So it definitely wasn't that, but it was kind of the way Dara directed it. He wanted me to look up at the cross, and he goes, "You want to believe that these men have." Oh man, I'm paraphrasing now. I can't even remember what he says. He says something about basically along the lines of you want to believe that there's salvation for these guys, that they can be forgiven and they can live a new life and all this kind of stuff. But I got news for you, Father. That's never going to happen. It's too late for that. And I even said it's too late for me. Like Tommy is too late for Tommy even because
That
he
actually,
realizes that he spilled so much blood that there's no coming back from it.
there actually is a thing
So
like that in the original game too, where the priest is like saying like so much bloodshed, all for what? And then as Tommy walks out, he says, "Pray for my soul, Father." And then the priest says, "I will."
yeah, no, that didn't happen either. But it was basically just sort of that monologue, and then Sam says, here's some money. If anyone asks, I don't know what he says. He says, "Don't." There was guys from out of town or whatever he says. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He says like saying like if the cops ask you who it was, say it was some guys from out of state,
Oh, with
preferably
East
down
Coast
south.
accents. Yeah, with East
Yeah,
Coast
East Coast
accents.
accent. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, that's that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just
And they're like,
mildly,
and I'm like, shit. I hope I don't slip into an East Coast accent now.
get us mildly racist, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. He's a geographist.
I
Mm,
know the East.
yeah. Yeah, where are you right now, actually?
I'm actually in Illinois.
Illinois, as I like to say.
Yeah, Illinois. Yeah, people actually like people I talk to in the mafia community. They do like to make a lot of jokes, like, "Oh, you live in Lost Heaven."
So wait, did you grow up there or you just moved there?
I grew up in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. Then when I was about
Oh, okay.
13, I moved to Michigan, and then a couple years ago, I moved here.
Okay, because I was gonna say you don't really sound like you're from Illinois.
Yeah, I don't really have the Chicago accent. I sound like a normal human being.
Well, well, see, that was one of the hardest things was because not only were we trying to do Chicago, but we were trying to do Chicago from the Prohibition era, which
Yeah,
apparently
Ward
I don't
mentioned
know.
you guys had a dialect coach.
Yeah, and she was very specific that, I mean, she's actually from that kind of area. I think she's Midwest somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but I think it's just she's from north of Chicago or something. I can't really remember where she said she was from. But and so she was had some great insight into not just the current accent, but the like the old school Prohibition Italian Chicago accent. And man, she was amazing to work with because I had no idea. I'm like, I don't even know what sound you're talking about. And she referenced some old school tapes that I think were released from the FBI interviewing these old gangsters. I think the tapes were probably from the 80s, but they were older guys, so they were probably gangsters back in like the, I don't know, the 50s or something,
Yeah,
or
because you're from
40s maybe.
Australia, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that was interesting and a real challenge. I really was worried. Like a couple of the people that were on set were actually from Chicago, and I was like, oh shit, like I hope I do them
Oh,
justice.
damn.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, it was a
All right,
great
so
experience.
nice. Yeah, I was going to say like so overall with your experience from Mafia, like the people that you met because of it, the game itself, like overall, how do you look at your performance overall? How do you look at the game overall, and how do you look at the impact it had on you overall? Like say with your friends and family.
Look, man, I'm really happy. I was so. I mean, look, it was just so long between when we'd finished the principal photography, which was it like March 2019, to when it got released, which was what, September 2020 or something.
Yeah, it
Um,
was originally supposed to release August 28th, 2020, which is actually the 18th anniversary of the original game, but then it got pushed back a month to September 25th.
because of COVID. I think a big chunk of that was trying to get the musicians because they couldn't be in the same room together, so they had to play their parts separately. And I mean,
Okay.
COVID was really made an interesting challenge for everybody, and it's
Yeah, but
amazing.
amazing. Like they did an
The
amazing job with the music.
music's
Like the recomposition of the main theme was spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, the musicians did an incredible job. I used to play trumpet. I played trumpet for 13 and a half years, and I actually played professionally for a year touring around Australia in an orchestra. And to have to do what they did without being in the orchestra itself and playing those parts solo with headphones, listening to what the rest of the orchestra was doing, it's just incredible. I think they did an amazing job.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
was watching the behind the scenes of that too, where they were showing the orchestra, and it's an absolutely massive orchestra, and the music is absolutely fantastic. Like Because from what I
Yeah.
remember hearing, they said that was the only song from the original they decided to redo exactly how it was. And it's amazing. They did a great job recapturing because Mafia does a great job with its main themes. Like Mafia 2 is a great one as well. And when it comes to Mafia Definitive Edition, like I have to say that's definitely like my second favorite game of all time, just behind Saints Row 2. Like it's an amazing game that I can only really thank the people I've met because of it. Because like a lot of my friends are huge Mafia fans, so I've been able to meet them because of it. The Mafia fan base is incredibly divided. You kind of have like say people who are just fans of the games but are not like diehard fans, and then you have like football fans for the game where like specifically for the original game where they will hate you if you talk about the new one in a positive light.
I noticed that. I noticed that. It's interesting, actually. Nicole Sandoval, the producer, warned me um, directly. She sent me a message saying, "Hey, just be aware that there may be some people who are diehard fans of the original that you might get some negativity, some negative feedback and stuff." And I think I've been pretty lucky. I mean, other than I've scrolled a couple of times on some YouTube stuff. I haven't done it since it was released, but back in September when it was first released, I just wanted to see what people were saying about it and if it was interesting to them or if they were happy with it. And I'd say 80% of the stuff that I read was really happy, but there was still that 20% where people were
I,
like,
I,
"Ah,
I love how you had
I'm the original man," and blah blah blah. Like they love the original, and that's fine. That's what it's very hard when you I think when you're trying to bring something back and recreate something. Like I felt the same way about the new Aladdin film because, as I told you, I was a huge
I
fan of the
hate that
original.
movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, I think they did a great job in performances, and it was great that they tried to do it as a live action thing. But I'm such a huge fan of the original that I just can't like if someone says let's watch Aladdin, I automatically go, yeah, let's watch the original Aladdin. I'm not going to watch the new one. And I'm
That
sure there's
film
the
to me
same
is the
goes for
pivotal
Mafia.
thing for the Robin Williams.
Yeah, and Robin Williams. Yeah, exactly. He's huge. We've come full circle
Yeah.
now.
And I love how
Yeah,
you had
but
me warned about like just so you know the fans can be assholes. Which yeah, because like when it comes to the Mafia fans, like the main criticism I've seen about people talking about you is basically like, oh, why does Tommy have such a gruff voice? His normal voice fits it a lot better. It's like I guess your normal voice does kind of sound like the original one closer. However, I still like the voice you put on for it. It still fit the character and what they're going for. And the
thanks.
original voice actor was Michael. The original voice actor was Michael Sorvino, son of Paul Sorvino.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have actually seen. I think I've seen the. I can't remember which scene it was. It might even be the Running Man scene you're talking about. I've seen one scene from the original, and I know
Can you
what you're
describe
saying.
it?
Um, Actually, maybe I've seen two scenes. I think I vaguely remember him sitting in a cafe as well. There was just some stuff where he was driving, and then there was some stuff where he was in a cafe. Look, man, it's been over a year since I watched it, so I can't really remember. But it might have even been 2 years actually. Um, but yeah, just that on that note, actually, about my voice, Nicole was a huge fan of that voice, and there were times when we were shooting it where I would slip out of that voice, and we'd have to reshoot again because she called it my hero voice, and she wanted that. She was like, "No, we want the hero voice, like hero voice."
Yeah,
She'd be like,
when did you guys come up with that voice? Like when was that the point where you guys was like, that's Tommy's voice?
"Oh, look, I think I kind of did it because it was the end of a long day when I first auditioned." Like when I put down that monologue that I'm telling you about that I put on as a self tape that I sent in,
Yeah.
thinking that it was for a feature film, and I think my voice just kind of already went there, but not as far as it did when we shot the game. And then when I did the callback, it was kind of a similar. I think I'd actually had a big night the night before, so my voice just kind of sounded like that. And then when we got on set, it was interesting also that that voice became more prevalent as we started shooting more and more because as Tommy ages, I think Nicole was very deliberate in the way she did this because as Tommy started to age, his voice started to go more like that. So you'll sort of see at the beginning of the game, he may not sound as much quite like that, but it starts to become more like that as it goes on.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that. There's actually when it comes to Tommy, you can even see his hair slowly get more gray as the game goes on.
Yeah, I did a great job with that animation. But yeah, none of that's. I wish that was my own hair. I wish I had that much hair. But Yeah, no, that's he's got a good head of hair, that's for sure. Even when he's old and gray, he's still got lots of hair.
Nice. Yeah,
Good
'cause so
bastard.
when it comes like the game's development, like when it comes like the other people involved in it, I've only heard so many nice things about all the other actors. The only one I have not heard anyone talk anything about was Saul. However, with people like Jeremy, Don, I've heard they were incredibly nice people. And so, how well do you think they were to work off of? Like how well do you think they got into the characters as well that you could work off them?
From the get-go, the very first day when we got down to the table read and I was introduced to Jeremy, and I know Don feels the same way. We both just looked at each other and went, "Holy shit, he is so perfect for this character." Like Jeremy is Paulie is Jeremy. They're one and the same. They are the same person. They're so bloody good. Like he was perfectly cast. You couldn't have cast better. Anyway, man. Hey, look, I've actually got to go because I got an appointment in 20 minutes.
Cool. Right
So
before you go,
I need to make
well,
a
right
move.
before you go, for the fans out there, would you mind doing the Tommy voice for the fans?
Hey, I don't know. What do you want me to say, huh?
I don't know. Say whatever you want.
I want
Maybe give like a
to.
message to the fans.
I think I want to go all Australian with it and say g'day to all the fans out there. I hope you're enjoying the game and make sure you shoot a whole lot of seps. You hearing what I'm saying?
I am. All right.
Great.
Have a fantastic day, Andrew. Have a fantastic day. Thank you for being here.
Hey, it's been great talking to you, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Ciao.